This is all like 72, 77. So I pulled it out when Phil came around because I just like.
So
I
this
thought
is,
that
was one of the coolest things.
Oh, okay, I'll put it
Was
back
the
in.
old contract and the
Okay.
typewriter.
I'll put it back in.
That's really good.
Here it goes. You see this?
Can you close that door?
Yeah. Can I? Will this help?
well, this is the actually does that help?
I unplugged these fellas because there was just too much.
Right.
That was kind of a nice fill.
I guess if it stops flickering, does it flicker like that?
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Okay.
But I don't know, maybe that's kind of, if that's
Period.
what the old shop was.
That's fine. That's good. We can leave it like that. That does help out.
It does? Okay. Should I turn
So I
this?
don't know how you want to approach this. This is the first I'm finding out about this
Yeah.
concept today. I don't know if you want to talk about the concept, or you just want to go through and talk about some of the stuff
It's
on the
Bob's
walls.
concept.
Yeah.
What I would do is just kind of, as a historian, take you through some of the pieces. So I just create kind of a grounding for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Is there a way we could kill the music?
Absolutely.
Oh, great.
Good call. Yeah.
God, we might not have picked up on that.
I mean, I was tapping my foot too. I mean, that's fine. But
Yeah, so that's cool.
So you think you should just go through and set
I think
the
just go
context of-
left to right on just some of because I can talk to, maybe not every one of these pieces, but I can talk to a number of them. And,
Yeah,
and,
see,
and then
something
you
that
just, if there's something we end up getting out of it, great. If
Yeah.
not,
Hey,
it's okay.
Jeff, is there
Right.
something I should pull out, like, so you don't have to like dig behind anything, or?
Let's see. I may not even go. Well, let's see. Yeah, that's a look that I can talk about. This
Yeah.
one I won't worry about. I won't worry about that one back there either.
Okay.
I might not even talk about that
What
one.
about this fella?
Um,
And how it was made or anything like that?
preceded Air Jordan.
Yeah.
Now, is this one specific era, or is it several? Like, it's a combination of years.
It would go from 72. This is 72 here to through 76 through 78. Pretty much sticks to the 70s.
Because when they had their first stores, when Nike had its first stores, it was still, or it was Blue Ribbon Sports at that point, right? When the first stores in '72 is when BRS became Nike. Is that right?
No.
When
It was well after that.
Oh, it was
In
after
fact,
that.
there's a debate as to which dates you look at. I always thought it was when we went public in 1980. I think legal says it was a little before that
Oh, okay.
when we actually made the changeover.
Oh, okay. So it was Blue Ribbon Sports all the way through the '70s, and there
Yeah.
must
Yeah.
Really, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay. All right. So this was a store that was, you kind of mimicked the
Yeah.
Eugene store.
But it was more like a inspired by,
Okay.
because when I first started doing it, I kind of knew, like, instinctively, like, just from looking at old archive pictures, kind of
I
like,
mean, these chairs
the
are
look it was going
like
for.
they came out of the,
Oh,
the
yeah.
store.
Well, so then I wanted to, I was kind of like a thrift store rat. It's like, this vibe comes, you should see my basement, it comes pretty naturally. So to set the vibe for the store, I was like, okay, like, I need pegboard, I know I need that. And the wood paneling was kind of
And
like,
there is a picture, a black and white
Yeah.
photograph of the original store that Nelson Paris uses quite a bit.
yeah,
And
I used that picture.
I'm standing on the side, just watching the people inside the store.
That's you?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. My knees.
Wow. Gee whiz. Yeah, the stuff's just tacked up on the wall?
Yeah, nail things.
Oh, yeah, literally, like t-shirts are like tacked, I mean, like, there's not even pegboard, things are like thumbtacks, like nailed, hanging from the wall. It's pretty, wow, that's you, huh?
Well, maybe we could just make this real easy. I mean, you could just talk about whatever you want to talk about,
Yeah.
and maybe set up the context of the
Yeah.
what time, what year it was, and
Yeah.
The logoing.
I could I could start with just talking about that first store in Eugene opening up in 1968. Was the first year we
really?
opened up. Yeah, I was going into the Navy for 3 years, so and up to that time I'd been keeping my inventory in the basement of my parents' home. People would just come up and ring the doorbell to order shoes if I was home and not
Like
in
a
class
regular.
or not running Bowerman's jogging classes or running for the team. So chances are they might get a pair of shoes if anybody was home. So I convinced Phil and that if we were to continue the Eugene operation, we really had to have a storefront. And so for $75 a month, we got this little hole in the wall down in downtown Eugene across from the Bookmark on Olive Street. And we did put in a all-weather carpet, you know, kind of like indoor-outdoor carpet on the floor. We had this, you know, these cheap plastic bucket seats. We really didn't have any money, so if we could pull something out of our parents' house, or, you know, the paint to paint the store came out of my parents' basement, leftover paint that was there when they bought the house, that sort of stuff.
Now, 68. What was what was the company like at that point? How many people were? How big?
Well, we were still selling Onitsuka Tiger shoes. Jeff Johnson was the first employee. I was probably about number 5, right around there.
So there were 5 employees at this point?
Yeah, maybe if we were lucky. We didn't even have a warehouse yet.
Okay.
So it was pretty new.
And then was there a store in Santa Monica at that point?
The store in Santa Monica had started with Jeff Johnson, right.
And that was right around the same time?
65.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the second official store was the one in Eugene?
It could be a toss-up between Eugene and the store on Southeast Powell next to the Pink Bucket that Phil got going, and then you know, Penny Knight was working there. It was, again, pretty basic operation.
So the idea behind the store in Eugene, aside from the fact that you didn't want people knocking on your door,
Right.
was I mean, what was sort of the concept behind? Because I mean, you know,
Well,
we're so familiar with this now, but I mean, nothing
yeah,
like that existed then.
Yeah. I think, you know, the real entry for us was simply that for people like Phil and I, was the fact that if you competed for Bowerman, even though you were a very average runner, you know, I mean, that didn't make any difference. If you were one of Bowerman's athletes, you had an in just about any school with any coach in the state, which really was a huge advantage. Because certainly they weren't reading about me in the paper, but they knew about Bowerman. And so if you called up and you said, you know, I'm Geoff Hollister, I run for Bill Bowerman, and we've got a new shoe that we're marketing from Tiger, you know, would you mind if I came out and showed it to you? You know, I've still got my original books with my coaches' names in it that I had my hit list. It's interesting to see what's happened to all those coaches today.
So that was your in, sort of the relationship with
Absolutely.
Bill
And
Bowerman.
you know, and even though you were an average runner, you could go to the school, you could talk to the kids, sit down, do a little clinic. You could do some running analysis, watching the kids run, a little injury prevention, you know, get them into a better shoe. You could talk about training. And basically the Oregon system, you know, was the system that just about everybody was following back then because of their success. But, you know, we started getting into product, and so I came back out of the Navy in 1971, came right back to the same store, hadn't moved, hadn't changed, hadn't even changed the front displays in the windows. I mean, the glue had turned brown from the heat from the sun coming through the windows.
Who was running this? So you set it up before you went into the Navy?
Yeah, I set it up before I went in, and a guy that was a teammate of mine, Bob Waddell, who had a back injury while he was in school, ended up in a wheelchair, ended up becoming president of Nike, and great guy, still lives in the Beaverton area, but Bob took over for me, and then when I came out of the Navy, Bob was my boss, so shows you how things work.
But the idea for the store in Eugene was because that's where Bill Bowerman was, and that's where the team was and everything? Is that why?
Well, I mean, we didn't have any money, so I mean, you weren't going to get too extravagant. I mean, it was pretty extravagant to set Jeff Johnson up by himself clear down in California and just think that this guy's going to come to work every day on his own. You know, good luck. You know, he could have just walked away every day, not even come in. But no, it's turned out. I mean, some way fortuitously, we picked really pretty dedicated, hard workers, and I think part of it was, you mean I'm a runner, and I get to go talk to runners, and I get to sell running shoes, and you're going to pay me? Now, that's a pretty cool deal. So, but when I started, I was just getting $2 a pair on every pair I sold, and I worked out of the trunk of my car in my parents' house in the basement, and I had to take my expenses out of that. So when I came out of the Navy, it was a different deal. Now I'm going to be on salary. So I come out as an officer, $1,500 a month. I take a 50% pay cut to work for Phil Knight. Hell of a deal, huh? And I'm going to raise a family. My parents didn't think that was possible, selling shoes. But I'll show you some of the stuff we started with here.
Can I just ask you one more thing about that?
Sure,
time?
sure.
That, like, I just think of, like, you know, specialty stores and stuff like that being such a kind of a common thing now.
Yeah.
I mean, was that a true novelty for
That was
runners to be able to go to a store?
Yeah,
and
yeah. I'll tell you. I mean, it's a good thing you asked that. I'll tell you a couple stories related to that. When I was in the Navy, I met one of my closest friends today, Geoff Galloway. Geoff is probably one of the most. You know, he's got the Galloway book on running. He speaks about 50 weeks out of the year to runners. He's kind of the guru now, especially with the Run Walk group. But Geoff was a year ahead of me getting out of the Navy. He had saved up $5,000, and he asked me, he said, with $5,000, do you think I could get a running shoe store started? And back then you could. And so he started the first Fidipides store, and he still has, you know, the Fidipides down in Atlanta. We went to the 72 Olympic trials. I'm going to talk to you more about that. But at the 72 Olympic trials, Marty LaCourie is walking through. And he saw that we had people backed up to the parking meters outside, just waiting to try to get into the store. And he looked around and he said, if they can do it here, we can do it in Gainesville. And that was the beginning of the Athletic Attic series of stores. And they went nationwide. Galloway ended up going nationwide on a smaller scale. And then there was a lady who had become friends with Laurel James. Her name is Laurel James, had become friends with Steve Prefontaine. And she'd just gone through a divorce, had 5 boys, and she asked the same question, $5,000, do you think we can get a specialty store going? And Laurel started Super Jock and Jill up in Seattle on Green Lake. It's still one of the top specialty running shops in the whole country, and they're still in business from 1976. So yeah, it started kind of right then, and we were really at the front edge of, you know, what you'd call specialty running. We, you know, it didn't take us too long, and we were into wrestling, tennis, basketball, but it started with running.
all right. Okay. Yeah.
I have images of both. Well, I have like that Fidipides shirt is the last guy wearing, right?
Yeah.
And then do you know Ruth Deal?
Ruth Deal.
She gave me like a bunch of Athletic Attic material from like then. Like I have brochures. I mean, I have visuals for all this
It
stuff.
used to be Ruth McCarthy.
Perhaps, yeah. She's been
Probably.
for quite a while. She worked
Yeah.
for Athletic
Yeah,
in
did the
Gainesville.
did the bags and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. She gave me a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So I have images for all that.
Cool.
Wow.
Ooh boy, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the story. Nike's first piece of apparel, made up for the Olympic trials in '72. If you see, and back then it was against the AAU rules. The AAU was the governing body at the time. It was against the rules for any athlete to go on the field with a branded logo across your chest. If you had a bag with a brand on it, you had to tape it up. If you had the name of the brand on the back of the shoe, on the heel tab, you had to tape it up. That's how strict they were. So we had just launched that year. Nobody knew. And when you read this, it seemed like the way that the N was scripted, people thought it read Mike. So nobody knew what this meant. We were, in the meantime, we were putting athletes' names, hot pressing them on the back of the shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil and Penny Knight, Jim and Gloria Gorman, my wife and I, we were all, you know, laboring over this hot press machine, 80 degrees out, a ceiling fan, no air conditioning. And again, the athletes were just backed up to the parking meters to get in to get their own screen shirt on the back. But we had all these mics. Need to change tape.
Nope, just need a chair.
Okay.
Thanks.
But we had all these athletes, you know, out on the field with Mike on their chest, and you know, the AAU Federation officials had no idea, you know, that this was a new brand that had been launched. Now, ironically,
That was the first instance of guerrilla marketing.
yeah, probably, and we've been successful at it ever since. Ironically, Stoggeberg, this was my teammate at South Eugene, and Steve coming out of junior high was a quarter miler. We encouraged him to go up to the 800. He was so good at that. We said, your future is going to be longer distances. Oh, a mile's way too far for me to run. He ended up becoming a sub 4-minute miler, and ended up at Georgetown. Was one of the few guys that could challenge Steve Prefontaine in a 5,000 meter race. They both made national teams together. But anyway, Steve's still a friend. He's still back in the Georgetown area. He even had kind of a slight Nike connection. He was assistant athletic director at Georgetown for a while when John Thompson was coaching. So that amazes me to see Stoggeberg's name on the back. Boy, this is something. An Oregon. This looks like an intramural shirt, so you can play greens and golds. A little bit heavy for any of us to have been wearing as a true running garb.
2 layers are better than one. Is that what they say about that cool motion stuff?
This, you'll see kind of a famous photograph of Bowerman where we did an ad, The Spirit That Moves Us, and Bill is wearing this sweater. That's very cool. The Sunburst is something that I came up with because I was struggling with the swoosh by itself. It seemed so awkward, and it just didn't have balance to it. So because we had a lot of clubs and college teams we were working with back then, I said I'll make it completely symmetrical. So I did the Sunburst, and that way you could arch a school or club name above and underneath. And then also just the Nike script by itself was kind of weak, and so I did this design called the Nike Modified Block, and we did that on a number of different styles. A T-shirt with big full blocks, a rain suit with a big block across the back. Basically, we broke the AAU's back in terms of keeping athletes off the field. We started getting successful at it, and finally they just caved, and they let athletes wear whatever we printed up.
Wow.
So
you know what I find interesting is it sounds like that original crew, the small crew, did everything. You know what I mean? Like, did you have a graphic design background?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I was an art major.
You were. Okay.
Yeah, that helped. I was a weak art major, but I was an art major because I was really bad at math and science, and so that took me out of architecture.
But you handled obviously the sales and the.
We did all our own ads for the store. I mean, if you see any of those, they are absolutely hilarious. Some I sketched, we got paper art, and you just clip things out and you just pasted them, and that became your ad. We advertised a lot for the store. I mean, we had ads going in the Register Guard regularly. This shoe is, the production, the Oregon Waffle is the production takeoff of the first running shoe we ever did, which was the prototype moon shoe in Eugene for the 72 trials. We built 10 pair, handmade. On the prototype shoes, we stitched the sole down because we were afraid that they'd fall off in the middle of the race. So we weren't confident they'd last, so we stitched them down. But this was a huge shoe for us. Very popular with the high school kids for cross country and indoor.
Is this the shoe that Prefontaine wore in the trials?
No, he did not wear our shoes in the 72 trials.
He didn't?
No. We only had one. We only had the one production shoe, and that was used in the marathon only. And the top finisher was Mark Covert. He finished 7th. That's the first guy to ever cross a finish line in Nike shoes.
Okay.
So, and he still has his shoes.
So when you say that was created for the trials, then I guess I'm a little confused.
Well, the prototype was a white nylon upper with a black swoosh, and then a little more cushioning in the forefoot than this shoe. And we hand cobbled those next door from the Eugene store at a place called Jim the Shoe Doctor. And so we glued them, stitched them. Phil ordered the uppers from Japan. And if the guy had a real wide foot, we left the eyelets the way they were. If he had a really narrow foot, we cut the eyelets down and then just readjusted the lacing. Mm-hmm. That's about all we could do to modify the shoe. Otherwise, if it fits you, it fits you. If it didn't, it didn't.
And this was from Bowerman's Technology?
Well, the Waffle was. Yeah, the Waffle definitely was. And we had been experimenting actually a little before that with the University of Oregon football team on the new AstroTurf they just ordered. And that actually had a lot to do with the development of the waffle for running. A lot of people don't know that, but the transition on the fields with no advance warning to the shoe companies was really a problem, because until we came along with the waffle, the basketball shoe was about the best traction they could get on that surface. So, the LDV. This was a biggie. This shoe was basically developed in Eugene at what had become the Foot Care Clinic, with Bowerman and Dr. Stan James, an orthopedist, and an orthotist by the name of Dennis Fixie. And the store was used as an opportunity to work with runners who had injury problems, which we were running into when we were going on the road too, talking to the schools and the coaches. We'd find athletes who had problems, and so it gave us an opportunity to document all these problems and then come up with a solution. And the LDV was one of those. It's a straight-lasted shoe. You notice it almost looks laterally and almost the same. You could hardly tell which. In fact, some people did have problems which foot to put these on.
This is a retro release.
Yeah, I would think this would
that's
not
the
be
original.
this couldn't be a new shoe. It looks really super clean, and the crepe looks really good. But the LDV was not a bad shoe. I mean, we did the LD 1000. Now that was a shoe that probably hurt as many people as it helped. I'm on the patent for that one. But it was an experiment, and what was beginning to happen was, with the running boom in the 70s, people were starting to take to the roads like never before. So you weren't just getting talented runners, you were getting the ungifted, the big runners, the slow plotters. And it didn't take too long, and people part of their vernacular was orthotics, pronation, and so they started taking their sock liners out and sticking an orthotic in. Well, with the old shoes that were built more like this, just sort of straight down, the heel counter might be wider than the midsole, and people got really unstable in that. So we started widening the base to give them more support, to have an orthotic, and you notice this heel counter is a little more solid. So that was all kind of going on just in a couple of years there to create the LDV. God, this looks like a takeoff on an old Oregon sweater. It might be. You made this up to look like this? Yeah. But one thing about Bowerman, this is kind of interesting. You look at this very simple Oregon screen print. He was really into creating lightweight, and so just like on the sweatshirt, he would screen print on our jersey with the lightest possible ink, rather than have a sewn-on Oregon. Washington State used to sew their letters on. They were heavy, bulky, and they put trim around the neck and trim around the arm sleeves. Their jerseys weighed a ton. And Bowerman would always tell us, your jerseys are the lightest ones out there on the track. And so what it got you believing before you even entered the race was you already had an advantage. And so it kind of, he had this way of building confidence for you. He did the same thing with our shoes. He'd hand build our shoes and say they'd be lighter than anybody else's. So
Hold on just a sec, please.
they felt light, so.
Were they lighter than anything that you had previously worn before?
Yeah, I mean, because he would do things like he'd reduce the number of spikes in the shoe. So right away, the weight of the spike receptacles, there'd be fewer of them. You could figure it out. And then he was going with lighter weight materials. I mean, he was the first guy to experiment with nylon uppers instead of leather. The leather, when it got wet, it got real heavy. And the nylon, in fact, he was experimenting with mesh. We got a pair of my old mesh shoes that Nelson has. And so the water would just go in and out. This shoe really, along with the waffle trainer, helped really launch Nike. This is the Elite, right? I think this has to be the Elite. But this became the favored marathon racing shoe in the country, and all the top runners were using it. Again, it used Bowerman's waffle, midsole cushioning, elevated heel, nylon upper, one-piece toe. So that was state of the art at this time.
What year would that be?
I think we'd be looking at about 78, somewhere right around there, 78. I know all the Athletic West guys were wearing this shoe. Sometimes, if they have a really good foot strike, they'd actually step down to this shoe, and I think this was the next evolution of the waffle racer. Again, went to the one-piece toe. So Pre really pushed for that. You can see the difference between this shoe and the original Oregon waffle. See the point in the toe and the seam down the middle, and Pre hated that. That just killed him. So,
was it because of his feet?
Yeah, it had a lot to do with the width of his foot. And we've got his shoe last over there in Pre-Hall, and he had a really broad forefoot. Dr. James said he could support the weight of about a 200-pound man, and when he was racing, he was 145. So he had a lot of strength, but he had big feet, big toes, and this one-piece toe kept all the blistering coming from that seam. Sometimes the blood would come right through the shoe. You could just, from the blistering. So this was definitely an improvement. This is a pretty nice little shoe. I love this paneling. This is kind of like what was.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
This is what was kind of like in Bowerman's lab. It was this same stuff, the printed wood. Here we are in the Northwest, and we're printing wood. But I think actually Bowerman had an in with one of the mills out there where they made this stuff. So he probably got free paneling for his office. He was pretty frugal.
Did you put the paneling into the shop, or was it?
No. I think Bill probably put a little paneling in when he moved in, but he was not for frills. I mean, I was just talking to Barbara about his house today that he built, which is still there. We'll visit it on Friday, but we could talk about it when we're there. But that house is just still a great space 50 years later. It's pretty impressive. It's really it's kind of almost Frank Lloyd Wright. It's really held up, with time and age.
So did Bowerman? He worked at the this store then? Did he?
No, but he came in a lot, and he and Barbara would show up at our road races that we put on every month. The store was the headquarters for running in the whole town. So they'd show up and they'd be at the card table, checking people in and that sort of thing. So they come and do that sort of thing. But no, he had his own lab. He had a lab that was downtown in the Eugene Medical Center.
Oh, okay.
And started out in the basement, then they moved upstairs, second level, I think.
He used to actually do it out of his house, though, right?
Started out in his home, and he continued to do some things at home. But this suit was this is one of the first warm-ups we worked on, and the company we worked with here was Jalink, and Jalink ended up joining Tiger to form ASICS. So, but we were getting these suits originally from them. They had the 4 stripes going across the chest and this cape look. I basically stole this cape look and did a rain suit with a hood with nylon taffeta. It looked basically the same. That's a hot item if you can find that, Bob. Sell well in Japan. Again, we went with the modified block because it was bold. It could show up from a distance, and it just stood a little better than the original Nike. And put it on the chest.
At this point in time, how much did fashion and style play into what you were doing?
Well, I'll tell you, we had zero control on color. I mean, color was huge. In fact, by the time we got to 76 Olympic trials, which I'll refer to a little bit, it looked like Easter. I mean, there was no color control whatsoever. It was pretty bizarre. And athletes put the most ungodly mixes of footwear and apparel together. But we tried to make it fashionable. The thing was, it backfired on us sometimes for the 76 Olympic trials. And what Jalink did, I was talking about Jalink here, but we actually had them fabricate a suit just for us, and down this seam, instead of the 4 stripes, they put this Nike link, kind of look like a chain link of Nike swooshes together. And so they actually manufactured that for us. I think that was what really upset Tiger, and they said, we're going to take Jelink under, and they combined forces to form ASICS, and we never got to work with Jelink again after they did that suit for us. And that suit was orange and navy blue. That was pretty wild.
I have that suit.
You referred to this as the $600 suit earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What is how much it's worth in vintage?
I bought it at a vintage shop in New York for
$600.
$600.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah. And the reason I had to buy both pieces is because they were selling them separately for $300 each.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, that's like breaking up your family.
Yeah.
75 this cost you about $45 printed.
Wow.
That was probably pretty pricey, maybe.
BRS, boy, this had to be probably about a 1970, late 71, early 72. Unless did you screen this yourself? You did that, huh? Oh, you man, pretty amazing.
There's a whole industry there that's
Yeah.
faux vintage.
Yeah.
Athletics West.
That's real.
Yeah. Tinker Hatfield and I worked on this design together. What we wanted Athletics West, what we want the emblem to represent. And first, it was just this emblem by itself with no Nike on it. We wanted the sports writers to have to actually work at writing a story about what this meant. And so we left Nike off, we left Athletics West off, and it really did work. We got some fantastic stories on this program. But started in 1977 after we had a disastrous 76 Olympics where not one of our athletes got a medal. The closest we came was Don Cardong, 2 seconds out of the bronze medal in the marathon. So we came back and Phil said, well, we could spend $50,000 on Sports Illustrated back cover, or we could try to do something about it. And so we started out with a concept of a budget of $50,000. We blew that pretty quick, but we recruited a small group of selected graduates from colleges around the country and started a club based in Eugene. We decided on Athletics West. It just kind of spoke to where the club was going to be located, and the athletes were required to move to the lettering style, though, is just something, this was my lettering style. I only had about one kind, and it was kind of this Wild West kind of look. And I used the same style when we carved the store sign for the Eugene store. Looks almost identical.
And what was the store called?
Well, originally it was BRS West, and then we changed all the stores. We had more stores scattered around the country, and we changed all the names to the athletic department, put them all under one banner. So when that happened, I just turned the pine over on the sign in front of my store and carved the backside of it. That's how cheap we were. Nelson Ferris's store, Phil gave me a $50 budget to decorate that one down in Santa Monica. That was one after the one that Jeff
What year was
Johnson
that?
started. Let's see, I would have gone down there probably about 1975, 76.
$50.
$50. That's what I had. Yeah.
In 70.
Spending big.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're lucky to get a couple buckets of paint.
So Athletics West was a club.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Postgraduate athletes, and we started with about 7 athletes. It ended up becoming the most powerful club in the world by 1984. We dominated the U.S. Olympic team in '84. Nelson was working the store down there. That's where the big Farrah Fawcett thing took off with her skateboarding on the Lady Cortezes and just launched the Lady Cortez.
Was that the first women's shoe that Nike came out with,
I think
or-
that was one of the very first with women's sizing. Yeah.
Can we work backwards here?
Yep.
Mind if we just face this way?
Yep.
Yeah, the light's better. Okay.
That's perfect.
This is very cool. The original contract between Phil and Bill, and until I saw this contract about 4 years ago, I was always of the belief that I'd always heard it was a handshake, $500 each, 50-50 deal. But if you look up close at the at the numbers, you will see Phil Knight's business acumen, because he retained 51% controlling interest and gave Bowerman 49. It's right there. So it's show you why Phil owns what he owns today. This is cool. This is hanging up in Nelson Ferris's office too. This is Rob Strasser's kind of marching orders, and there are some absolute parallels to the Nike Maxims today. Our business has changed. That's one. Always on offense. That's another. There's something that's very close to simplify and go. It's about perfect results. One of the ones I remember, because I was out on the road so much, was live off the land. I thought that was very cool. But anyway, this is kind of cool stuff.
That also kind of sounds like what Prefontaine might say.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all really, number one, we were a really good fit, and we really understood each other. The guy I mentioned, Don Cardong, who almost got the medal, almost got our first Olympic medal, he had a really interesting observation. He said, the guys that work at Nike and we athletes are one and the same. And I thought that was really an appropriate quote. It's just like we could speak the same language. I mean, Knight wasn't that far out of college. I was just out of college, so it was, and we were still working out and running, and we could go for runs with the athletes, and they thought that was really cool. So even Strasser was skinny back then.
Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, Rolling Thunder. Yeah. Bubba. This isn't the first. This is the first, but it's a pretty good, facsimile of the original shoe. This shoe had a terrible toe on it, and I can't tell you how many big toenails I lost over the years. Back to the point I had to cut out this whole area so my big toe could stick out.
Now, this was a court shoe, or?
No, this was the Cortez. That's
a running shoe?
This was kind of Bowerman's first effort at the training shoe with dual density cushioning, the elevated heel. That's about as far as he got at that point. By the time you got to the Elite and the Waffle Trainer, but you got a Waffle Trainer right here. You've got a nylon upper. That's a big breakthrough. Is this the Wally Waffle? No, this is the women's waffle trainer.
The men's.
Women's waffle trainer. Yeah, here's the men's waffle trainer here. But this is real state of the art with the waffle outsole, dual density cushioning. We even put a few more waffles back here in the outside heel so it wore better. This is a cool shoe though. This really is what launched Nike as a running company right here, this shoe.
And that's what year?
This would have been 78.
78, okay.
And, from this point on, we were in double, triple growth every year. It was 7.5 million to 14 million. It just kept going.
And the time between when you went into the Navy and came out and started working in the store
68
again,
to 71.
what kind of growth did the company experience?
It was minimal. I mean, we still stayed real small. Phil wasn't full time yet. He was still teaching at Portland State. So we weren't into it 100%. About the only real full-time guy that was out there learning every day was probably Jeff Johnson at that point. He was just, and boy, we needed it too. We needed somebody who knew what they were doing out there. This suit, this is. It seems like this is quite a bit later. I'm trying to think what kind of a.
Yeah, the tag upstairs is like one of the newer tags. The one behind it's older.
Turn the light over.
Could this be as late as like even 85?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I think so.
This fella looks a little bit older. The tags.
Yeah. This probably first year, 1980 of the apparel division. I think I saw that in the catalog. But
So up until that point, there was no apparel division?
not until 80.
What was?
All this stuff was stuff I was just doing on my own.
Okay.
Yeah. Without it, this was just to take care of our athletes. This was our promo package. So this was one of the first inline pieces.
That story
Yes,
that you
it
told
was.
about Bowerman saying that the shirts were lighter.
Mm-hmm.
When was that?
Oh, he was doing that, when I was in school in the mid-'60s.
The shirts that were coming from Blue Ribbon?
No, these were what he was putting on us at the University of Oregon
Oh, okay.
as team members, yeah.
But was there some technology story there as far as the...
Well, just the fact that he would go for the lightest ink possible. And then the shorts were made out of almost like a parachute cloth. I mean, you literally had to look down to make sure you had them on when you were in the starting line.
And these are custom made by...
They'd be custom made by somebody. I'm not sure who made them.
But under his directive?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
He'd tell them exactly what he wanted. You know, no trims, no added weight. And then, he would weigh everything.
Mm-hmm.
He'd weigh the shoes he made for us. He'd tell you exactly how much you were carrying. I took it a step further by eliminating the jock strap, and which worked fine when you're running the mile, but when I switched to steeplechase, it was a bit of a problem.
So I guess
Stand next to the camera.
I guess what I was wondering was then so it was the primary focus was shoes. I mean,
Right. The apparel really became a necessity for us to be able to compete against Adidas and Puma and be competitive, because they had some great stuff, and it was very distinctive, and but I have to say it was very conservative. They'd come out with maybe 1-2 colors in their warm-up suit, and that's all they had all year, whereas we just kind of blew out the jams on the colors. And when we got to the 76 trials, Jeff Johnson had so many colors in our training flats and our racing spikes that it totally blew the competition away. They thought that we came out with this line of 100 different models of shoes. They were just different colors. You had basically maybe 2 shoes and tons of colors, and it totally confused them.
Wow.
But the athletes thought it was really cool because they'd step out on the track. One guy would have a pair of silver and black shoes. Another guy would have pink and blue. And, they felt like, they were something special because it was their shoe.
Kind of like the
no-
Presto, almost in that
Huh?
sense. The Presto craze is...
Yeah, a little bit. Or Nike ID.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it,
Yeah.
the customization, we got to a few points where somebody started saying, I want this shoe in this color in my size, and that got to be a little bit too much for us. We couldn't handle that yet. Nike Country, I saw one of these coming in. Now, notice how tight the sleeves are and everything, and this was the style back then. Even the guys had these body form fitting shirts. This was the 70s, definitely. And the athletes had great bodies to put them on. The thing that was weird was you were talking about the fashion element. And we thought we really had a handle on the fashion element. So what blew me away was I did a package that had product for the athlete to wear on the track, and then product that I really thought would be what they'd want to wear on the plane going to and from the meet, kind of as the fashion statement. They totally reversed it. They wore the fashion stuff on the track to compete, and then they wore the stuff we thought they'd have on the track. That's what they wore on the plane back and forth. So, but it worked. Still, they wore their Nike stuff. It was pretty cool. But Nike Country was just kind of a fun, wild logo. They liked this. I mean, this I'd say, and the shirt back here were 2 of the athletes' favorites for the Olympic trials. This was the international flag shirt. I was telling Bob I still have my original pen and ink sketches on this, but and we picked countries that Nike was had athletes in and would have some representation, so it meant something. But it was kind of cool, and we kind of wanted to show that the little guys in Oregon have we've really grown up.
Yeah.
We're big boys now. We're international. So that's kind of it. I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of, oh God, and you got first beer I ever drank. Ole, God, I remember that. My Uncle Elsie's house, man. Had one of those when I was probably about 9. Put me on my butt. Okay, that's cool.
I think probably the best thing would probably be just to, you know, if we want to follow up, maybe we can and figure out what this is. I mean, we just kind of wanted to get in here before this came down.
Sure. And I think, you know, there's old pictures. I'm actually going through all my old slides and stills right now. I told Bob I've got boxes and boxes. And I'm going through this stuff, just picking them out one at a time and seeing, you know, I mean, I was telling Nelson the other day, I said, my God, I saw pictures of a guy by the name of Jack Foster. You wouldn't know who he was, from New Zealand, but he was World Masters Marathon record holder. And Sebastian Coe, sailing on my sailboat. And I'm up on the, you know, taking pictures. I got some great shots of them. But it's really cool to see, you know, the kind of things we were doing clear back then, which, you know, the athletes thought was kind of fun and cool. So I think I'll be able to find, you know, pictures of the store, pictures of some of our promotion efforts. I found some film footage. There's some film footage that would tie in this beautifully. I don't think, God, did Bob see that the other day? Maybe I did.
Which Bob are we talking about here?
Lambie. Maybe he did see it. The 76 Olympic trials footage with all the stuff walking around, you know, on the athletes, on the track, the T-shirts, the warm-up suits, all the stuff I'm talking about. So you could do a very cool job cutting back and forth, you know.
This is what, 8mm stuff that you shot?
It was Super 8.
Yeah.
And
did you get it converted, or is it still on Super 8?
I got it converted over. In fact, Neil Webster, who runs our running website, is asking me if I can find out if, I forgot to ask Hernandez that this morning, if he's got the Beta SP. I think he went to Beta SP off of the Super 8.
Okay. That's a good transfer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with Neil. Like, it's funny how this is like kind of like spreading and working out, like just making connections. He was originally like slated to come down with us on Friday.
Yeah.
And he
couldn't go.
He couldn't go. So, but he's deep into this too. I asked Corey. He's booked up.
Which Neil?
Webster.
Neil Webster.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like a 7 o'clock departure still, right?
Yeah. Tell people.
Yeah.
And we lost a couple guys from this. Rebecca and I, Denny, you and I, and Nelson. I think that's it.
Okay, so Nelson is going to come.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Because he can fill in, you know, what was going on down in
yeah, he's a great order too.
Santa Monica at that time.
Yeah.
Because he was working the Alice Cooper beat, you know.
Yeah. It's funny when you were going through, like, even your narrative, I mean, I was thinking, like, the images that I have. I have a picture of, like, the Santa Monica store. I have some pictures, like, some of the shoes you were talking about.
Right.
And so, the ads, like, I have, like, the ads for the Elite with that Porsche. You remember the Porsche ad?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Denny and Adam are picking up a lot of stuff, too.
Yeah.
Again, I think I'm going to find a lot in these boxes because
I think it'll be
I
great.
didn't even know I shot some of this stuff. What I was looking for last night when I ran into this other stuff was a picture of my daughter when she was about 18 months old, mixing cookies on the kitchen counter because she's going to have a baby in June.
Oh, man.
So I'm going to pick the
okay.
enlargement up right now.
Oh, man.
Do we want to just talk about the room real quick? Why you guys?
No. We're good. We'll just.
I really like. I said the old, Jordans from '85. I said I'd die for a pair of those.
Yeah.
I said they're just kind of hard to find sometimes, And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, well, they have a schedule where it just comes out every once in a while.
Yeah.
But dude, if there was a store, and I knew it was like I'm going to New York, we're going to do some shopping, Nike store.
Yeah.
Or even online,
Yeah, tell some stuff from archive. Just include together enough to kind of get the point across.
So what's the purpose of the trip down to Eugene?
That was actually Nelson's idea. Like, they've done this before. I don't know if it's like a program or anything like that, but like just to kind of like if you come, would you mind driving or caravanning or what? This whole thing, this was a really like officially sanctioned process where things get created. So like they want to figure out like how they and then like he has like a
story about that.
The whole story about it. It's just like.
No, we saw got our hands on some old school stuff, some old like in-house promos from like the.
You got some on you? Oh, you're all set. There you go. Right. Freelancing for about a year and a half or so before I got the job here, and it was just. I knew a bunch of people here ready to go. So when worked here for a long time. And I thought I was just kind of looking for work, and they said, "Oh, well, you want a job? T-shirts?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know. You know, like, no one wants to say, oh, I want to be a T-shirt designer, you know." But it was a pretty cool gig, and it was, you know, pretty decent money for me at the time, and it was a job.
Yeah.
And the freelancing was driving me crazy because you'd have like a kick-ass month, 1 month, and then like.
You just spend all your money on beer.
Yeah, right. Nothing. So I just got married, and I was just like, okay, the band thing I don't want to do anymore. I was doing that kind of at the same time. I was like, okay, it's time to get serious about stuff.
To the college path.
Yeah. Let me just make an easement over here.
Are you serious?
How's that?
Real estate lot?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's well. That is there's a.
That's original there, huh?
Yeah, that was one of the. There's a few pieces that I picked up at this vintage shop in New York, Major League.
Yeah.
You know, so yes.
Where in New York was it?
It's called What Comes Around Goes Around. It's like obviously he knew because he knew enough to charge like some big cash for it. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, just kind of. Yeah, I don't know if you want to like just kind of unzip it or just kind of just display some of the elements of
Yeah.
it or.
Oops. I could.
Yeah. Okay.
Show the stripe on the leg.
Oh, that's not what he's talking about though.
Okay.
I have that suit is
Cool.
actually in another building.
Yeah. Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just, I just couldn't read the.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one is that?
It's the waffle racer.
Waffle Racer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this is the Elite.
Okay. You just want to kind of, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
This is the LDV.
Does that stand for LDV?
I know it. I can't tell you, but I know it.
Cool.
And then that was that's the part I remember about it. It's like that was really radical when it came out. It's like this giant flared.
Right.
So.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you what this is right off the tip of my tongue, but this is. But he didn't explain to you. Was it like this was?
Big fat toe.
Well, the technology that enabled them to do that was like normally like last was like that just like a solid piece.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when they went to go take they cobble the shoe, right? You
Mhm.
can't get it off the last, right? So that's why it was split down the middle, so they could actually pull it off and then sew it together.
Okay.
So like the big technological breakthrough is the fact that like the last actually like was bolted together. You know, like they call it a slip last, so you can
Okay.
actually like collapse it and pull the shoe off of it. So
Right.
you didn't have to do that anymore. So that was like,
Wow.
so that was kind of like that's what Nelson was telling me was the big breakthrough. Was like this slip lasted
Right.
construction. So it just kills me that was like all the technology was like around like mechanics like that, you know, or like just like, hey, why don't we, you know,
Mm-hmm.
really simple ideas.
How about some of this?
Oh.
Actually, how about the bag? You want to talk about this bag?
Oh
for
yeah,
a second?
yeah. This was a bag from Archive that we just went out to Archive one afternoon, and just like I'd never been out there before, and I think they probably thought we were trying to rip them off, right? Because of this eBay thing going on. But this was like the the Sunburst logo.
Yeah, this is I want because he talked about this. I just want to make
Right.
sure I get that
Right.
kind of.
Yeah. My research of it, it spins both ways. Like the swoosh is all different sizes. It totally looks like hand drawn, right? There's no like standards and practices manual around the usage of this thing at all. So, yeah, and then there's like the big to make sure like.
He thought that looked too plain.
Yeah,
Goes
but
through
we
the
didn't.
same.
This was even this like this with the Nike on it was new. We just had just the swoosh.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a leather bag. What's the year on that?
I would say it's
Leatherette.
yeah, leatherette, Naugahyde
What's
era.
early 70s?
I would
Mid 70s?
The last usage I saw of the Sunburst was 80, so I would say like
Really?
Mhm.
Wow.
yeah, there's a Sports Illustrated from 1980. It
Oh,
has
okay.
like that on it. So
Right on.
Yeah, definitely 70s.
How about some of these shirts over here? Maybe that.
Oh yeah, the Fly Nike is the only piece I could find, but this is from my understanding, a sticker program that we had as a promo thing, and I don't know if the T-shirt was probably like a secondary use of it, but we had a bunch of stickers that we used to give out as promo items. One of which said, "One swoosh is better than 3 stripes," which is, I just love the fact that we'd write that on a shirt and sell it. You know? I love that.
That's
So,
great.
Yeah.
I mean, it shows you like just
Yeah.
the mentality. I
I
think
know,
that's
it
really
was like-
interesting. That
well, I
group
have
of
to
guys are
admit-
just like,
I don't know. When I first got here, I couldn't understand how confrontational. We used to get like those, the videos about, or like these updates every week about like what Audi is doing, and it was always framed in like this real like confrontational sort of
Mhm.
language, and I could never understand like why all the vitriol around Adidas and Puma and why they're so bad. And then going back and Nelson explained to me, he said like you have to understand like Nike was kind of born in the late '60s, early '70s. Like rebellion was kind of like the name of the game, right? Like. You're coming out of the '60s and like you're questioning all authority, and the AAU, everybody knows about Prefontaine's struggle with them, and Audi was like corporate big business, the bad guy, and we were like Nike was like struggling against that. So that's why I think the perceived villainization of like Audi and they were kind of like the powers that be at the time.
well, plus they wanted to win.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that I realize that, and to hear it explained that way, you can understand because it's just old-fashioned passion, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right. So, but
This
yeah.
Nike country shirt?
Nike
Talk about
coun-
that a little bit.
yeah, this was like going back and looking at researching like old like catalog art and things like that, and lots of times there weren't samples of the actual art. I mean, we had a lot of this stuff, but some of the stuff, you're literally like looking at old catalogs, and the art is like half an inch wide or 2 inches wide, and you're scanning it at like 1,000 DPI and blowing it up, and still doing a little bit of interpolation because you
Mhm.
just but just the fact that like it was also homegrown and like do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or everything now seems like it's so scientific, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's some soul to that I think we need to communicate to people.
Yeah.
You know. So and I mean I remember going to like games at like Civic Stadium and seeing like the Beavers play or the so and like there was a big like painted billboard on the wall at Civic Stadium that said "You're now in Nike country." I mean, do you remember that? And I was just wow, that was it. That was the flavor. And I remember the first time I saw like a Nike like commercial on TV, I was like, oh wow, you were totally rooting for them.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't like
Yeah,
this giant perceived hegemony that we are now, like Nike, Gap, Starbucks, McDonald's. I mean, no.
Yeah, they're kind of like the underdog a little bit, weren't
It
they?
wasn't that at all. And it's really amazing to me that the people who got that started are still working here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really funny that Alberto Salazar doesn't even work in his own building.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, he works in Mac's own building.
Want to take a piece out for people?
Hmm?
Want to take a piece out?
Well, they had they had AstroTurf in the original store.
I know.
Oh, what?
The AstroTurf original stuff.
Oh.
It's a nice touch, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, I can do it all the way. I was going to go wall to wall with it, but I didn't have time. Yeah. But it gets the job done. Vacuumed it all up. We papered the windows so I don't even know what's going on inside. Yeah. So it was fun. I've had this dream. Wouldn't it be fun, like totally like learn how to be like a virtuoso, like on piano, and not tell anybody, not even your wife, And then like one day, I think I'll play something at the piano and just like play like
belted it.
just like play something really amazing.
Uh-huh.
I could never do that.
I have a
but-
friend who's been going to college to finish his degree, and he hasn't told anybody yet.
Oh, really?
What he's doing it. And he's just
Oh,
gonna invite.
man.
He's gonna invite him out.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you guys want to do this weekend? Oh, I got this thing downtown. You want to come? And then bring her to his graduation.
Oh, I don't.
The
Well,
thing's
he
gonna
probably
be-
thinks he's having an affair or something.
Well, his wife knows.
He's
He's not married, but his
Oh,
he
his-
doesn't have any family here.
Oh,
His
okay.
all his family's
Oh,
back
okay. So that's
in
how
the
he's able to
Midwest,
get away with it.
yeah.
I see. Yeah, that's I love that. I love that. Yeah, the facilities. It's so funny. Like I don't know if they have plans to move people in here or not. But, they started calling me like, 2 weeks ago. Okay, time for it to come down. Give me a date. I was like, oh, okay, this Friday, I suppose. And then I got whiff that like Phil might be able to come out. So I called her back and said, okay, I need another week. And then it turned out to be like the Monday after the week I told her. So she was like, I don't care. The President of the United States is coming. You got to tell her. I was like, well, what? Why are you cramping on this? Okay, so then I found out about this, and I'm just like, I didn't tell her anything, and I'm just gonna wait until she calls and says, if you don't take the room down, we're gonna fire you. I just like.